Trials of a Royal Guard. By Ansel. Chapter 17. The Bargain. In the heat of the moment, I hadn't had a lot of time to consider the ramifications my plan would have for me. Could I do this? My confidence was starting to wane as the TMS Reciprocity streaked across the sky. It was a ship that would have been comparable to the new Squire-class cruisers if it had been a military ship to begin with. It wasn't, though. It was a heavily retrofitted civilian craft that had been pressed into service after the Harmony had gone down. The Reciprocity flew an equestrian flag, but I wouldn't have called it or the ponies crewing her typical navy. No, these were most likely volunteer sailors and officers that were helping to expand the fleet during the war. They were somewhat peculiar, but given my recent experience with the actual navy, I didn't mind. We were moving at a fast pace, but I wasn't sure it was going to be enough. I trotted up to the pony I'd learned was the captain after mistakenly assuming the pony that was dressed like the captain was the captain. That was, apparently, the first lieutenant, Lieutenant Bosun. Bosun wasn't his name, of course. He had evidently been the bosun and the captain just kept calling him that. None of it made sense, but proper military decorum didn't seem high on the captain's list. Captain Boar, I called to the blue-coated earth pony that was leaning against the main mast, a garrison cap pulled low over his face. He pushed the cover up just enough to peek at me with a green eye. Major. All told, Title Boar was made up like a character one might imagine from a fool's pirate tale. From his manner of speech to his buccaneer coat, if he were any closer to Longtail Silver, I'd have questioned my sanity. How long will it take us to reach Canterlot? Time is of the essence. Don't you be worryin' too much, Major. This Ole girl may not look like much, but she be fast. We'll be reachin' Canterlot before 2 moons have fully passed. It isn't like ridin' the waves of the sea in talking weeks. 2 days there, that only left 4 days. I had to get back. Assuming that also took 2 days, though it would be different. Probably 3, maybe more. This was going to be tight. The captain's brow raised. And if I may ask, Major, why are we in such a hurry? Classified, I replied while working things out in my mind. Captain Boar slapped a hoof against the mast and laughed deeply. Ain't it always with you lot? That be fine by me. Much of my business be classified, too. My ear flicked and my attention shifted to him. Your business? When we aren't at war. And what would that business be, or is that classified? He laughed again. No sense in hidin' it. We be privateers. Wait, what now? Privateers? You're suggesting you have a letter of marque from the crowns? From the crowns? Nay. Princess ponies aren't keen on piracy, you know. Nay, our business be with the Griffin Kings and their nobles. They're a competitive sort and don't mind spendin' bits on quality sailors, be they pirates, smugglers, or both. I see. If bits are your concern, then why volunteer for the war? The captain's face went serious. Whatever jovial feeling he had before evaporated in an instant. He took 2 steps towards me and growled, because I know where I be from, and bits be one thing but honor be another. A little squabblin' between griffins is good for business. They didn't need to be draggin' us into it. Killin' ponies and blastin' the Harmony out of the sky like they did. No, sir, this be bad business all around. Too much blood. Killin' is somethin' you do when you absolutely must, and that's that. I don't fly that there flag lightly. Our eyes fell on the equestrian standard flapping smartly in the wind. The light blue field matched the skyline and highlighted the iconography of 2 alicorns chasing each other. It was a flag that had only existed a hoofful of years, but it meant a lot to many, many ponies. My apologies, I was just curious. I don't doubt your loyalty to the crowns and other ponies. Captain Boar waved a hoof. You be within your rights, Major. I make no secret of our profession. Bits motivate us. Though, occasionally, we did earn them honest. We've done some work for your intelligence service, you know. I didn't know. Though I'm not surprised. Ponies are quite obvious in the Griffin Kingdoms. I suppose a well-known captain would be less so. He laughed again and nodded. Exactly. Try to enjoy the ride, Major, you look like the uptight sort and perhaps a few days' rest would do you good. Perhaps they would. You can remove that chain mail, too, if you like. I can assure you we won't be having any boarders. Remove my chain mail? I wasn't even sure I could. I felt naked and vulnerable without it, but he was right. I'd remove it and settle into my cabin. I could read the tome more and prepare myself. Every piece of the plan would have to go perfectly, and there were several tasks I needed to attend to. Including a little painting. Canterlet. How long had it been since I'd seen it last? Almost 2 years now? It looked exactly how I'd left it. In the twilight, it was peaceful, as if we weren't at war. That is what Crystal often said to me in her letters. The ponies here were too far removed. It upset her at first. She'd finally found peace with it. My wife might be somewhere in this city right now. I could see her, touch her, smell her. It would be easy to just walk away, but seconds would be paid for in blood. Others' blood. No, Silent Night is not home yet. Just a cloaked pony on a mission. I suppressed the urge to gallop to everywhere familiar to search for her. No, there is a schedule to keep. I had to get in, get what I needed, and get back to the reciprocity in the span of a couple of hours. When I reached the File and Philly Alchemist Supply, it was already closed for the evening. I went around back and knocked heavily on the door. There was light under it and I could hear the familiar sounds of experimentation going on within. There was no answer, so I knocked again, harder, louder, more desperately. Come on. Eventually, it opened and Runic File looked out in confusion. Why would he recognize a pony in a dark cloak? I unclasped it and pulled it free. He stared at me in shock. Silent Night. Silent Night. You're home. Your wing. Self-consciously, I pulled the ruined, braced wing in tight. Runic, it is good to see you. More than you'll ever know. I need something, though. It's important. When we were younger, you used to make mistakes a lot with your transformations. You turned a bunch of regular rocks into sapphires and said they were failures. Do you still know how to do that? I need to know how to do that, and I need to know right now. Runic blinked, clearly trying to process it all. He kept smiling at me and then the smile would droop. Finally, he leapt out of the doorway and hugged me. He hugged me so tightly it hurt. It was the best I'd felt in months. I embraced him back and held on. We lingered like that, squeezing each other as if we would never let go. Part of me didn't want to, either. I missed you, he said. I missed you, too. Horribly. Thank you for the helmet. I liked the stripe. He nodded. I knew you would. You like anything blue. Are you going to see Crystal? She's with your sister somewhere here in town. It felt like I'd been dunked in ice water. I carefully withdrew from my cousin and set a hoof on his shoulder. It literally hurts me to say that I can't this time. Soon. You can't tell them I was here. This is official, classified, and I'm running out of time to save lives. Do you know how to turn rocks into sapphires or not? Runic gave me a disapproving look but nodded. I do. Can you please write down how and give me some of the potions? I need them and then I have to go. Back to the war. Unfortunately. And this is going to help the war. More than anything you and I have ever done. Runic turned and walked back into the shop. Okay, come on in, then. If it helps get you home for good, I'll do it. I trotted along behind him, trying to feel less like a monster for not stopping to see the ponies I loved. Weak. Finish the job. Thank you, truly. I'll be home soon, I think. I really do. The grey Pegasus dug around the workshop a bit. It was completely different from how it used to be. The Mercare bottler was still there, but everything else was armor. Dragoon armor, campaign armor, and other things to defend ponies. Runic was doing his part. Here we go, he said, pulling out a small crate. It had a few potions in it and some notes. He set those out and picked up a fresh scroll. Carefully he transcribed things while I waited patiently. As patiently as I could. It was a slow process and I was alone with my thoughts. What I was about to do. How it would impact so many lives. What if Miley walked in right now? What if Crystal did? Please, Crystal, just walk in. It isn't my fault if you happen to show up. Silent night. Runic lightly poked my shoulder with a hoof. He offered me a scroll, 3 potions, and a copper pan. Here you go. I hope it helps. Remember, igneous rocks. It will. Trust me, it will. We hugged again and I wanted to linger there. Get a move on. I'm sorry, Runic, I have to go. I'll see you soon, though. You can bet on that. Great. We'll play games. We will. We'll play games, I said before leaving the workshop, pulling my cloak on, and galloping towards the port. I had to be back on the ship as quickly as possible. It would be best not to be seen. Were I to be recognized, it would have led to awkward conversations and fuel my desire to never leave equestrian soil again. But to just see Crystal for a second, just 1 second. No. Right, it wouldn't be for 1 second. It would be for a minute, an hour, a day, a week, and then I'd be AWOL and others would be dead. Luckily, or perhaps not so, I reached the port and boarded the Reciprocity without incident. Captain Bohr called up, Lieutenant Bosun, cast off. We be on our way. Mr. Navigator, set course for Nordenver. Aye, Captain, they replied in unison. Captain Bohr, we're not going back to Nordenver. At least, not alone. You're going to have to make one more stop first. Tidal Bohr arched a brow. Is that so? And where we be visiting next, Major? Midnight's Peak. I've never heard of it. I suppose not. It's a ghost town. At least, it used to be. Set a course east along the Foal mountain range. I'll show you how to get there. The captain called up, you eared I'm. Set course east. Aye, sir. Mr. Navigator replied. In a ship this fast, it wouldn't take long to get there. Not long at all. I'd need to be ready. As I headed to the stairs below deck, Captain Bohr set a hoof on my chest. Anything else I need to know about this classified mission? Midnight's Peak is a dragon roost. Be on your best behavior or no pony will be going back to Nordenver. He grumbled before removing his hoof. Once I was below, it was time to get my game face on. The presentation and word choice was going to be exceedingly important. Perhaps the most important thing. It had to be clear, precise, and without ambiguity. It felt as if it had been a lifetime since I'd painted a miniature and I was never as good at it as Princess Luna, but, all things considered, I had been skilled enough for this important task. As the Reciprocity had streaked towards Canterlot, I'd carefully painted the symbol of the Knights of the Moon on the helmet of my dragoon armor. The full moon symbol, I'd learned through study, was drawn from Nocturna's own cutie mark, a full moon made up like an owl. Now it was time to don the guise. In the cabin I occupied, I didn't have any help to dress, but it wasn't the first time I'd done this on my own. It all started with the black chain mail. It wouldn't do anything in the face of a dragon, but this wasn't about surviving a fight. This was about presenting a look, a reminder. After the mail came the plates. Piece by piece, section by section, until almost all of Silent Night disappeared into a shell of darkly colored Cloudsdale steel. There was only one bit left. I pulled the helmet on, fastened it tightly, and pushed the visor down. Silent Night disappeared then. He was pushed deep down so that Dread Knight could conduct the business of the realm and do what was necessary to save lives. From Silent Knight's meager possessions, I pulled out the sword he'd been hiding for quite some time. It was the one Runic had made for him, the one he'd used to slay Alistair, Retribution. After that, he couldn't use it and had instead opted to carry Stratus Knight's blade. That was the past, though. It was time to move forwards and put an end to all of this. In one fell swoop, I could end this war and go home. It just meant doing what others might be afraid to do. Retribution slid easily into the sheath beneath my good wing. On my way out the door, I stopped to grab a campaign cloak. That went over my shattered wing and bag. There was no reason for the Obsidians to know flight was impossible. When I got on deck, the crew fell silent. That was no surprise. Most ponies did when they saw a black dragoon. We had a reputation after all. The sun had just set and the moon was starting its ascent. I tapped my breastplate, activating the enchantment contained within. It allowed me to see in greys and browns regardless of how dark it was. A gift from Princess Luna. The full mountain range stretched out beside us as we sped east. It didn't take long to spot the one peak that protruded into the highest clouds. "Captain, that is our destination. Change course." He called from the command deck. The reciprocity shifted with ease towards where I'd indicated, and it wasn't long before we pulled up to the grand entrance of Midnight's Peak. A few young obsidian dragons spotted us and hurried inside. "Wait here until sun up. If I'm not back by then, assume I've failed and return to the fleet and report as such." Captain Boar nodded. "You are one crazy pony, lad. Are you sure it'd be wise to march into a dragon's roost alone?" My head shook. "I'm not alone." Then I leapt off the deck and onto the stone landing below. Any fear or doubt that Silent Night might have felt was hidden within. Together, we trotted straight into the mountain. There was work to be done. Work that would cast our enemies low and remind them that there were consequences for their greed. Downwards, I spiraled into the depths of the mountain until I reached the city of Midnight's Peak. The buildings were still intact, as was the keep. The dragons, it seemed, had largely kept to the outskirts and left the ghost town alone. Ranhild had kept her word. The keep was my destination. While I marched, numerous yellow eyes glowed in the darkness, watching me. Dragons were very territorial and I was an uninvited guest in their home. I ascended the steps outside of the keep and turned towards the city. "Ranhild, matron of the Obsidian, I have come to bargain." My voice echoed against the vacant building walls and into the grand cavern. It was met by the swoosh of massive wings flapping. A gust of wind battered me as the dragon matriarch came to a landing in front of the keep. Her mighty, horned head lowered to my level and she peered at me with amber eyes that glowed like the stars. The hairs of my coat stood on end beneath my armor and I could feel her aura slamming against me. Dragons had them just like alicorns. Fearsome auras meant to intimidate and terrify. I would not be denied, however. Ranhild flared her black-scaled wings and boomed, "What business do the Knights of the Moon have bargaining with me? Your mistress is fallen and her keep is mine. Perhaps you think yourselves capable of reclaiming it. Her keep is yours and was fairly acquired. I acknowledge this and offer no challenge. You are trusted with the care and protection of this sanctuary." Her eyes narrowed. "The Knights of the Moon recognize my claim to this keep." "We do. And you speak for them? Who are you?" "I speak for all Knights of the Moon, as I am the last. I am Dread Knight, descendant of Nimbus Knight." It was time to gamble slightly. A leap of logic based on what I'd seen in the memory and what I'd read in the tomes. "I suspect that perhaps you knew him, as you were well acquainted with my mistress. You also must know that I was once Silent Night, and he would call you ally before enemy." The ancient dragon blinked. Her perfectly placed expression cracked ever so slightly. "It is unnerving to have someone you don't know you." She recovered quickly, parsing my words. I knew both Nimbus and Silent. If Silent Night would call me a lie, would you, Dread Night, Night of the Moon? We shall see once our bargain is concluded. She snorted lightly. Very well. What is it that you desire from the obsidian? Far from the safety of Equestria, our warriors are engaged in furious and bloody conflict with Sudramore griffins that are offered up by a king who cares not for the lives of others. He seeks only land and resources and is not an honorable, protective ruler such as yourself, great matron. Ranhild sat tall, striking a regal pose. You speak well of me. It is my duty to protect my brood. This king wastes the lives of his. He does, matron, and I seek to protect the lives of mine. The Griffin King has built a fortification like none other. Assaulting it would result in the loss of many, many lives. I wish to spare ours. The dragon's head tilted. And the lives of the griffins. I'm afraid they are forfeit. I have no plan to protect them. That is a job for their king, would you not agree? With a snort, the dragoness nodded. We must look to our brood. What is it that you seek, then? You, matron. You and your strongest warriors. I've devised a plan that can only succeed with your participation. You would put us in danger? Ranhild asked. There would be danger, yes, matron. Though how much I cannot say. The obsidian are mighty and strong. The griffin's weapons are weak by comparison. We are indeed. Few beings would dare stand up to us. We do not fear conflict, but it must benefit us. Making an enemy of this king may be unwise. What is it you offer in trade for such a great gesture on our part? Carefully, I reached beneath my campaign cloak and into the small bag against my side. I found 3 vials of Runix potion and set them on the ground in front of me. Ranhild dropped her head low to peer at them. It was actually a show of bravado. Her head being so low meant I could strike if this was a trick on my part. You offer us 3 bottles of water? Are you mad? No, matron. I offer you a strength that no other dragon brood will possess, an endless food supply. Food that you can find anywhere and easily. Never again will your broodlings have to search. Never again will you have to be concerned about hunters that venture out to seek gems. You will become the most powerful matron. Her response was a deeply skeptical look. That was fair. Runic, I hope you haven't made a mistake here. From my bag, I produced a copper pan and settled it on the stonework. Then I scooped a few hooffuls of loose stone off the ground. Hopefully this was the right kind, ignorant rocks or something. Runic had been specific in his scroll. It was supposed to be the most common kind of rock, anyway. Finally, I opened a potion and poured just enough to get all of the rocks damp before lifting the pan and shaking it. The stones jostled and bounced, and nothing else. Oh, no. It should have happened by now. I jostled them a bit more and, just as I started to look for a hasty exit, the grey exterior of the rocks flaked off to reveal perfect, glowing blue sapphires. Ranhild did not react. Rather, if she did, she kept her poise. That was important for the negotiation. She couldn't betray any excitement. You would teach us to make gems from common stone? Are the potion's ingredients readily found? I would. They are far more common than gems, yes. This is an advantage that I will share with no other dragons. It will be a bargain struck exclusively between you and I, matron. It is a novel trick. Useful, yes, but certainly not as powerful as you suggest. My brood has never had trouble finding food, she said with pride. While I do not doubt your words, great matron, I can only imagine what other great things you could do if you did not need to invest time in searching. Time to grow stronger while your rivals dig and expend their energy. The dragon matron settled back on her hind legs, seemingly considering this novel offer. Of course, it was anything but. Your point is well made, Knight of the Moon. Share with me the specifics of your plans so that I may know how many of my brood I shall have to risk. Were you only asking for me, I would gladly make this bargain. I am mighty and do not fear your enemies' slings and arrows, but it is my obligation to protect my own, even from minor harm. Very well. In a mere few days, we will. Dread Knight explained it all to the matron while I ruminated over whether or not I could live with this. I'd lost any taste for killing. I'd do it as I had to for the cause, of course, but this was going to be different. I doubted anything like this had ever happened before. How many griffins would I personally be responsible for killing? So many were just following orders and had hatchlings, spouses, parents, and other loved ones. They are in our way. This is how we get home. We'll do what we must. Yes. For Crystal. Ranhild's voice cut through the haze of my thoughts. This is a bold plan. The sort I wouldn't expect from most ponies. From a Knight of the Moon, however, I can see it. You will need many warriors and what you've brought to trade is not enough. That I doubted very much, but she likely had something else in mind. Some way to show she'd gotten something extra from me. Name your price, matron. I will go to great lengths to protect my brood and I know you, of all great leaders, can understand that. This action may result in my brood making a great many enemies. This king you speak of will most certainly become one. I do not fear him, but I will not last forever. I must make plans to defend my own even once I've moved on to the next world. She pointed a razor-sharp talon at me. Your bloodline and, if it is reconstituted, your order, will protect my brood as you once protected Noctina. A pony that will go to these lengths is the sort of pony I would require. If we are attacked, even by other ponies, you will put them to the sword. That was a stretch. There was no way I would be living in Midnight's Peak. No, that's not a fair bargain. I bring the gift of endless food and put your brood at true risk once. You ask for generations of my ilk to be at your beck and call. I will offer this instead. If you are attacked as a result of this bargain, I will defend your brood and I will bring many, many warriors with me. If you are attacked, unprovoked, by ponies, I will personally protect your brood. I will do these things but only when called. Nothing more. Ranhild shook her head. This is most specific. I will accept if you also swear that if you reconstitute your order, neither you nor it will never raise a hoof against the obsidian. You may not tie blood, but your order will honor agreements. My order didn't exist, but the memory was frightening, even to the obsidian, it seemed. That was important. It was little to offer. Very well. I offer you this gift of endless food, defense against the enemy you're about to make, defense from unprovoked aggression from ponies, and freedom from the aggression of my order, so long as you do not attack its members. Ranhild, matron of the Obsidian, do you accept this bargain? Ranhild folded her wings across herself and looked at me. This will do. Dread Knight, Knight of the Moon, I accept your offer. Make ready, for if we wish to make your deadline, we must leave immediately. We shall follow your ship. We'll be ready, matron. I'll see you outside. Indeed you shall, she replied before flapping her large, leathery wings and lifting off into the cavern. I'd done it. I'd made the deal. Luna helped me with the outcome. Author's note. The culmination of a thread that existed in memoirs. I've been planning this for such a long time it was exciting to finally reveal the connections. Now, what does Dread Knight look like? This is Black Dragoon armor. It is influenced by Final Fantasy Dragoons and is meant to have fantasy elements. One note on the sword. The rework of Secrets of a Royal Guard addresses this better. Trials is being written based on that and not the original. Thank you to Runic for providing a detailed and silly captain, smiley face. If you are enjoying this story, please consider taking a look at Crystal and Maya's website quillenblade.com for extra content such as mini-stories, an Ask Us form to submit questions, responses to said questions, and special rewards for the awesome folks who support our Patreon. End author's note.